Okay, I'm recording.
Oh, nice. Okay.
I'm eating
So,
ice cream, by the way.
of course you are.
So if you hear like
I'm
clinking, that's the
drinking
spoon.
coffee.
Hmm.
That's fine. I don't judge you for that. So, what are some examples of this sexism that you've personally seen in Overwatch?
So the most obvious was a couple. So it's a couple months ago. That's not to say that it's super uncommon,
Yeah.
but it's more just because I haven't been playing quite as much the last few months and weeks. Um, so a little over a month and a half, maybe 2 months ago, I was in a game of competitive Overwatch online, and this is at like the very high end of the online ladder of play. So we're
Mhm.
talking like the top 1 to 5% of the community skill wise,
Mhm.
and everyone locks in the characters that they're going to play for the match, and one person locks in Ana, and so far there's no problem, and we start playing the game and we get to the first fight with the enemy team, and the person who locked Ana chimes in and starts making callouts, and she is a girl.
Mhm.
And instantly the person who is playing DPS on our team, the damage dealer on our team, says, "Oh my god, this person has no idea what she's doing." um, Literally his exact words, I think, were along the lines of, "Oh my god, she's a girl, she doesn't know how to play."
Oh,
Which
good God.
I was like, "Oh my god, you actually just said that," because I've seen people be sexist jerks online before, but
Mhm.
he wasn't hiding it. He was just like, "She's a girl. We need another healer. Like someone else go healer because she can't play."
Oh God.
Like he actually just straight up said that.
Yeah.
And after we lost 2 fights, what he did is he went back and he swatched off of damage dealer, and he went another healer. So now we had more healers than we needed because he was so sure this girl was just so incompetent at healing that he needed to do it for her.
Phenomenal.
And
Just phenomenal.
it gets a little worse actually, because
Yeah.
later in the game, when the girl continues to make callouts, ignoring him like a badass, right? Pardon my
Okay.
French. Um, she's taking it in stride. She's ignoring him. She's probably muted him at this point. She's making callouts, and he goes out of his way to say, "Stop talking. Your voice is so annoying."
Good God.
Yeah. So that's probably the most extreme example I've ever seen.
Yeah. Are there any other like smaller examples they've seen, like in quick play, in Sparks Pugs, other communities you've been in?
So it depends how small you want to get, um, because I do know that a lot of my friends who are girls who play Overwatch or other video games, they have a tendency to not use voice chat. And while
Yeah,
most of them have
definitely.
never told me why directly, I'm fairly certain it's because they're well aware if they speak up, everyone in the lobby is going to be like, "Oh my god, it's a girl," and then it just devolves from
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, I definitely understand that. So another one of my questions is, why do you think it is that female players, when they are accepted as just players, why do you think they're always expected to play support roles? Because you hardly ever see girls that are tanks, rarely DPS. Like most of them are Mercy, and then sometimes they go on to Ana or Lucio. But even then, it's kind of unexpected, or just being like, oh,
Hmm.
Lucio, that's cool. I remember when you were talking to me about um Luna. I think she was Luna, or am I thinking of someone else who was a different Lucio?
Lyris is a Lucio main.
Lyris is the one I was thinking of
Yes,
then.
and Luna recently attempted to learn Reinhardt, although she actually ended up deciding she was more comfortable on off tank and, of course, Mercy and Lucio, like you're saying. So,
Actually, I want to talk about that for a second. I want
hmm
to put that other question I had on hold for now.
hmm
In my personal experience, I've tried to learn new heroes and, put in effort to try and learn them, but I wasn't as good at them because I was, at a higher level now that I've been playing so long on, support heroes, and I
Hmm.
got a lot of really negative backlash for being, a girl, not playing support or just not being good at the game. And
Hmm.
I literally just gave up at it because, I was getting so much negative backlash. Do you think that's a big reason on why, a lot of female players are hesitant to get into competitive scene, learn new heroes, or just, play Overwatch in general?
So yes, and real quick before we go any further, I would like to point out I am a guy. I'm not gonna know as much about what it's like as
Yeah,
someone
no,
who is
no,
a
for
girl.
sure, for sure.
And if you want to go talk to some of my female friends who play Overwatch, I would be happy to refer you to them as well because they'll
Yeah,
probably know more
definitely.
about it than me. I can tell you
Yeah, yeah.
what's topical, but I can't tell you what it's actually like to
Yeah,
be
yeah, yeah.
a girl in esports. Um,
Yeah.
I can give you sort of an overview of the situation, but it'll just be
Yeah, for sure.
what's objectively true, that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure.
So to get back to your question though,
Yeah.
yes. The very short answer is definitely yes. And I think it's related to your previous question as well, which I think. So you asked. Could you restate the question again? I don't want to get off topic. If I don't want to like accidentally go
Yeah.
on a tangent.
The first question I asked was, why do you think it is that most female players are expected to play support roles? And then why is it so difficult for them to move out of that?
Right. So I think that is a cyclical effect actually. So
Yeah.
the reason it starts, as far as I understand it, is in general, females don't have as much experience as males when it comes to first person shooters because first person shooters tend to be advertised towards guys, adolescent guys,
Hmm.
and females just aren't introduced to it until much later. And so when a female starts playing Overwatch, it's more likely to be their first person shooter ever than it is for a guy who starts playing Overwatch who maybe he's played CS:GO or Call of Duty or a million other first person shooters before. And so
Yeah.
that's why girls who play Overwatch tend to
Hmm.
gravitate towards less mechanically demanding heroes and heroes that involve a lot more strategy and mental work rather than
Hmm.
raw aim and timing. And
Yeah.
so what happens though is after it shows up that like 70%, say I'm just pulling that number out of thin air, after it
Yeah.
starts to become obvious that like
The
70% or
majority.
more of girls are playing Mercy, then the community starts to catch on and they say, well, obviously girls are all playing Mercy, right?
Hmm.
And so then it becomes the norm to expect girls to play Mercy. And that can even get to the point where people think there's no way they can play anything but Mercy. So,
Yeah, 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 for sure. I remember I was writing about something for my writing class the other day about Overwatch, and it's kind of what made me want to write an essay about this.
mhm.
But where was it? And then once they kind of have that stigma of being, a mercy main,
Mhm.
it's it's kind of a negative thing in and of itself to be a mercy main. But then once they try to not be a mercy, kind of ragged for, then they also get more negative backlash for, trying to not fit that stereotype. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I know you definitely probably haven't gotten that kind of experience, but where was I going with this? It's just something that I've definitely noticed that
Mhm.
isn't the greatest.
So I think I'm sorry, were you done?
Yeah, more or less
Yeah.
with that one.
So I think it's actually two parts to that problem, which
Hmm.
is in general the heroes in Overwatch that take less mechanical skill and are more mental, they in general have a stigma about them that they're easier to play. And technically speaking, the truth is they have a higher skill floor. It's easier to achieve a certain minimum of value with those heroes. But the
Mm-hmm.
skill ceiling, the maximum amount of value that you can achieve is no easier to obtain than it is with any of the heroes in the game. And so, because of that higher skill floor, there's a general stigma that it's easy to play those heroes. And so,
Yeah.
people will call you bad if you play a lot of Mercy because they think, well, clearly you have to play Mercy. You're too bad to play any of the more demanding heroes, right? When really
Yeah.
that's usually not the case.
Yeah.
And so, the other part of it is there is a stigma that I actually don't think is just related to girls in Overwatch, which
Mm-hmm.
is once you learn a particular role. Oh, there's a small echo. One sec. Once you learn a particular. Oh god, that echo's real bad.
What? I can't hear it.
Yeah,
Let
I'm
me.
getting a big echo. Give it a sec. Okay, it might be gone. You still there?
Yes, I am.
Right. So once a player in Overwatch learns a particular
Oh no,
role.
you're gone. You're just gone.
Oh gosh.
Hello.
Hello. Can you hear me? Hello. That's all right. We'll get it back. Just a second. That better?
Yes.
Perfect. So what I was saying is, there's a general stigma that I don't think is limited to just girls, where once you learn a particular role and you have a lot of hours playing that role, whether it's as a tank player or a damage dealer or a support player, it's very frowned upon to try to play another role in the
Yeah.
same circle of people because they expect you to play at a certain skill level, and of course if you play a role you have no practice on, you will do worse, and so they might get upset at you because you aren't performing up to what they expect
Okay.
you to perform at. That's
Oh,
why.
let's take a pause for a hot sec.
Yep.
Are you gonna be back soon, Josh? Okay. Cool. Cool. I'll just be here. Cool. All right. Continue.
And so once you start playing a role you don't have as much. That's still an echo. Do you have any
Yeah.
earbuds?
Nothing plugged into my laptop.
Oof. Okay, I'm gonna try to be a little quieter then, so that it doesn't, so that echo's not as bad.
Yeah.
Once you try to play a role you don't have as much practice on, right? You will underperform, and people can get upset at you for not performing up to their expectations.
Yeah.
And
And
so
I feel like that can somehow be that can be heightened.
I think I was about to
Or
say
being a girl.
I think it's probably the hostility is more for girls because there's that assumption that they're going to play Mercy and they're at least going to know how to play Mercy. And so if nothing else, they should be able to swap to Mercy and win you the game, right?
Yeah.
And I think there is more hostility towards girls in that area, but I think the stigma in general is actually not limited to just girls on that part.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. So, I want to touch on Owl for a second, the Overwatch League,
Mhm.
because there is a lot of sexism going on right there right now.
Hmm.
With China's team. There was another team, or it maybe not an Owl, but maybe it's tiered down, where they drafted a female player and she had to quit because she was getting so much negative backlash.
Right. So
Do you know that at all?
those are two separate cases.
Yeah.
I'll go through them in chronological order so you can get all the details.
Yeah.
The second one is actually really interesting. It's not quite what you think it is, but it should still be useful for you to dissect. So the first one is Gaguri is a professional tank player for a professional team called the Shanghai Dragons, and she's a very talented player, and she's put a lot of hours to get where she is, just like any other. But when she originally appeared on the professional scene, everybody's first response was, "There's no way she's actually that good. She must be hacking."
Yeah.
And that is not a normal thing to say about someone who just shows up and seems to have a lot of talent. You don't just
If I
assume they're
remember
hacking.
correctly, none, absolutely zero of the male players that got drafted had any sort of reaction like that.
I can't speak to that. All I can tell you is that if they did, it wasn't publicized nearly as much as it was with Gaguri.
Yeah.
But I can't confirm one way or the other that there were
Yeah,
no hacking
that's
scandals, because I
I
can
never
tell you
remember any.
there were a lot of boosting scandals with, and there still are, with a lot of the male players in Overwatch, which is all but Gaguri right now, Overwatch League.
Yeah.
So there definitely are scandals, but I don't know of any hacking scandals.
Yeah.
So yeah, everybody's first response was, Gaguri is hacking. There's no way she's that good. She doesn't deserve to be on a professional team, which
Yeah.
was pretty disheartening, because what happened was her organization actually ended up having to fund a stream where they took a camera and showed her playing the game, like from a third person point of view, to prove that she wasn't getting any assistance. It really was her at the keyboard. She was the one playing, and she really did have
Wasn't
that aim.
there, yeah, wasn't there another stream that someone literally built her a computer on stream to like
Yes.
prove to the internet
Yes,
that
on that stream, they built the computer from scratch, and they like
yeah.
installed the operating system, and they installed Overwatch to show that there were 0 hacked clients on the computer. And finally,
Yeah.
that got people to sort of shut up and accept, yes, okay, she actually is a really talented player.
Yeah. And it's just it's it's kind of it's upsetting because you know that another like a male player probably wouldn't have that same
Absolutely not.
those same lengths to prove that they're just a decent player.
Mm-hmm.
I think also she got a lot of backlash because she's a tank player as well,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
an off tank player rather than a support player, and so the fact that she needs aim and she has these in-game skills that
You
that
don't
are
usually see in Mercy players.
you don't see in mercy players or support players in general, and I think they just weren't. I don't know even what it is that makes them act that way, and that leads into another one of the questions that I have for you specifically as a guy.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think guys behave this way towards female players? Is it to degrade women? Is it to keep these games male dominated for their own comfort of this? Like, are women like threatening them in any way? Is it to like gain standing among other male players? I just do you know like understand any of it? Just seeing as you're a guy, I'm not saying that you do any of these things because I know you personally don't.
I don't do these things. I don't think it's funny to be like, oh my gosh, it's an e-girl, give me your number. I don't do that. I know some people who have done that, and from what I can tell, so here's something you should understand about the scene of competitive gaming. It's not just male dominated, it's teenager dominated. We're talking high school students and like freshmen in college.
Yeah.
Like we're talking adolescent teenage boys. And these are people that lack impulse control. They think acceptance from their peers is more important than being nice to people. And that combined with the anonymity of the internet and what I consider to be a general atmosphere of sexism in American culture is what leads to the online acceptance of this sort of behavior.
Yeah.
Because anyone will be an asshole to anyone on the internet. That's like across all demographics. That's just a thing. And so when you also take into account that these are teenage boys in a male-dominated demographic of gamers.
Yeah.
And they have the anonymity of the internet, so they won't feel like they're to blame for anything that they do or say. That's just a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, absolutely. And women tend to bear the brunt of that backlash and the brunt of that toxic environment because they're the outliers in that demographic. Like it's like you said, it's male dominated mostly, and the minorities are always the ones that get picked on, and I guess it mainly just happens to be women that kind of bear the brunt.
Well, you can't necessarily tell what race someone is by their voice,
Exactly.
or even nationality sometimes. But it's
Yeah,
very
absolutely.
obvious when you have a woman and a man playing in the same lobby. You can tell from their voice. And so that's why
Yeah.
in gaming, racism isn't nearly as well known as sexism is in gaming.
Yeah, definitely.
To try to answer your question a little bit better, about what specifically might be going through a guy's head when he says this stuff,
Yeah.
they probably think it's funny, is what I would hazard a guess at.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
They're probably looking to make their friends laugh out of shock factor.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Should I give you the other story though?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Right. So, this is not a stereotypical, woman gets into a place of power and men doubt her sort of story. This one has some extra twists and turns to it. It's not as straightforward as it was with Gaguri. What happened was this female player showed up, and she seemed to have this incredible just talent for Overwatch. She got her account, and then almost immediately she floated to the top of the online leaderboards as I think as a tank player, and her name was Ellie. And it didn't take her
Mm-hmm.
long to get picked up
Mm-hmm.
by a professional organization. I don't remember what the team is called. You'd have to look it up. Um,
Yeah.
but it was for a officially sponsored tournament, Contenders, which is considered just below the Overwatch League as far as skill level goes. Um, so this player was playing at a level like just below Gaguri. You can think about it like that. And
Yeah.
what happened was immediately everyone said, "There's no way this person is this good at the game. I'm pretty sure this is a guy playing on a girl's account and pretending to be a girl."
Yeah.
And so, obviously, there was a rush of news reports and a huge outcry about the fact, well, you guys are all clearly sexist because, of course, a girl can be good at Overwatch. And
Yeah.
what happened is it turned out it was a guy pretending to be a girl. And so that actually causes a few issues that need to be discussed, as you can imagine,
Yeah.
where and there's even more depth I want to get into with this story, but bear with
Yeah.
me.
Go
So,
ahead.
one, you can break down the hyper inflammatory response from some more liberal news outlets that were just waiting to call gamers out on their sexism. That definitely made the problem worse, and I mean, they were wrong in this instance. There was some evidence in the end that proved that this person was a man playing on a female account. And even the people who pointed out
Yeah.
this very real evidence were getting called sexist. So that's something you can look at as well. But that's not the focus of this discussion. So I
Yeah.
will steer away towards that. You can decide how much you want to look into it later. And really, the biggest problem that people now have with this person is everybody hates this person. Everybody is pretty upset with this guy, because what he's done is he's now given these people who think it's impossible for women to be good at Overwatch a case to point at and say, well, I mean, this guy proves it, right? Because he wasn't a girl, he was a guy who was this good at Overwatch, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that's a huge problem going forward. And what's even more interesting is the person who did it did not have any ill intent. He actually wanted to know what it was like to be a girl in the esports scene. That's why he did it. He wanted
Yeah.
to show up and claim that he was this girl that was really good at Overwatch and see how people responded. And interestingly enough, he says he was harassed nonstop in his games. What he did is
Oh yeah, for
he
sure.
sat his girlfriend down and he had his girlfriend be on the comms while he was playing at the keyboard, and that's how he did it. Um,
Yeah.
and so he was harassed like nonstop for all this stuff as well. Um, so I mean, he got a taste for what it was like to be a girl in esports, but also he sort of set this unfortunate precedent going forward that people are not very happy about.
Yeah. No, definitely. That's really interesting though, because I can understand, where he wanting to know what it's like to be a girl and try to bring attention to that. But at the same time, it's also like kind of almost throwing women's reputation under the bus,
Mm-hmm.
kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Just as like kind of digging a hole deeper that people who play this good really aren't, women or can't be women.
Mm-hmm.
It's just kind of like good intentions, really bad execution.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And it's like, do you know if men who play support roles are harassed for that at all?
Yes. Male Mercy players. Oh, that goes back again. Can I
Yeah.
give it a sec? Male Mercy players. Oh my god, the echo.
I'm so sorry. Do you want me to try and move to my phone? I have earbuds I can plug into my phone.
If you want to.
Do you think that would help with the echo?
Maybe.
Here, let's give it the old college try. Alright, I'll call you back in one hot second.
One moment.
Hello?
Hello.
Hey, is that better?
Yes, it's much better.
Oh,
Much
phenomenal.
better. You even sound better.
Nice.
Okay, so as I was saying, to answer your questions, is there a stigma against guys playing support? Yes, specifically with Mercy players.
Yeah.
It's much less common for a guy to be harassed about it than a girl, in my experience. Yeah. But in general, there's an attitude about male Mercy players, and I've only ever seen people act like or joke about this once or twice. But there is a generally accepted attitude in the culture that Mercy is a girl's character. That if you are a guy and you're playing Mercy, you're doing a girl's job, or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, it's girly, it's feminine, and it's not. It doesn't have anything to do with the aesthetic of the character. It's because that's what the.
It's kind of how the culture's been built, like it's what girls usually gravitate to just because of, they don't have as much experience and it's an easier character to play just objectively, like mechanically. And so it's just kind of been built like, oh, that's the character the females play, and thus that is a female oriented character.
Yes. And so let's see what else. I haven't seen it with any of the other support roles, and I think that's because of all the support roles, it is Mercy that this is the most extreme for, and also Mercy has one of the highest skill floors, like I talked about earlier, of all the support characters, besides maybe Moira.
Yeah.
And so Mercy is generally considered to be the lowest mechanical skill hero in the game, and so all these effects are really exaggerated for her.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Let's see. Yeah, I think. Let's see. Let me ask that one. Right, that's kind of all the questions I had. Were there any other points you wanted to just bring up that were on your mind about it?
Give me a sec. Let me see if anything comes to mind.
Yeah. Because some of the argument, for my essay, I need to, I need to work really closely with some of the readings that we've been doing. Two of them specifically are about, sexism on the internet and the guys' code, if that means anything to you. The guys' code. It's kind of like a specific here, what is it? Let me look it up really quick. Yeah, it's basically like guys, this is a very specific example, but guys were asked to, say, what does it mean to be a guy? And then their top answers were like, boys don't cry, it's better to be mad than sad, don't get mad, get even, take it like a man, those kinds of, male-oriented things. Do you think that has any impact on how guys generally act? Does this affect, how they kind of interact with each other and with others in the game, or do you not think that it's a little bit of an old-fashioned kind of thing, but I think it's definitely still kind of relevant.
I don't know anything about that study or source that you're referencing,
and
forgive my skepticism, but those sound like fairly unreasonable and extremist things to just straight up say, with the exception of maybe the boys don't cry one. That one seems the most realistic of something that I could see the average guy on the internet saying.
It's just kind of those general
general attitudes, maybe to a much lesser extent,
not
do exist.
Not as extreme, but the general kind of, it's mostly subconscious at this point for most guys, and they're also the ones that just haven't gotten a lot of experience with expressing themselves more, because it's more about being as little feminine as you possibly can. And I think it's kind of what ties into like the whole the guys don't play mercy kind of thing. And one of the bigger points was guys do things for the attention and the approval of other guys, sometimes at the expense of women. And I feel like we kind of touched on that.
That is a point I would definitely agree with. I think a good chunk of the time when people are doing or saying something that puts women in crosshairs, it's most likely for peer approval.
Yeah. Can you expand on that in any way or not?
I mean, I think I mentioned earlier that I think the thoughts that are going through someone's head when they say things like "oh my god" and "e-girl" is that it's funny, right?
Yeah.
And they're not thinking about the fact that that player probably has to deal with people screaming that in voice chat like every other match that they say something in chat, right?
Yeah.
And that probably gets really old. Like, it's probably not funny to them.
Yeah, probably not.
I mean, imagine if you get a new haircut, right? And every second person you talk to for the next 3 weeks says, dude, your haircut looks terrible. Even if they chuckle afterwards, and on top of that, everyone like around you starts laughing when they say it, right? Even if they chuckle afterwards, as if they're trying to make it clear that it's a joke, I would guess that by about the 10th person, or maybe the end of the week, you're going to feel pretty insecure about your new hairstyle.
Yeah, for sure.
Even if they're trying to make it clear it's a joke.
Yeah. Because, like, to them, it's, like, just a joke, like, really quickly, and just not a big deal, but, for on the other side of the coin, it's like they're getting the same joke by a billion different people constantly.
Especially when it's, it's about them. It's about the fact that they're a girl. That's what's being laughed at.
Yeah.
So
something they absolutely
it's, oh my god, you're a girl that plays Overwatch? And then the message there is, that's not normal. And even if it's a joke, they repeat it over and over. And by week 10, you're thinking, man, I am not normal. I need to fix myself. Right?
And that's honestly why it's probably one of the biggest reasons I stopped playing Overwatch. And it wasn't even like people who said things to me maliciously, and it was just maybe side comments that they'd make, like, oh, you're a Mercy main, or oh, you should learn new heroes. And then I try to learn new heroes, and they're like, oh, you need to work on your aim. Why can't you hit that? Like, just little things that they
Mm-hmm.
probably didn't think would affect me, and they probably didn't even realize they were saying things like that. But to me, it was like, no matter what I did, I'd get some little snide comment. Not even, like, sometimes they would even be like Tony or like our cousins or anybody else that we were playing with, and they would be my friends, and I wouldn't really mention it, but they'd say things that would kind of be hurtful, and it's like they don't even realize they're doing it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not something I would necessarily fault them for specifically, but it's also like at a certain point it gets to be too much.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I was there for a chunk of when people would say that to you, who we both know, and I realize now I said some of that stuff to you as well, although
you did, but it wasn't as much.
Well, so here's why I said that stuff to you, and it wasn't because I thought, you're better at Mercy, so you should stay on Mercy, because I understood the point was to get better at another character, right?
Yeah.
And so I think odds are with a lot of the others, it was probably that stigma I mentioned earlier, where they want you to play at a certain level when you're with them, right? And so they want you to play Mercy because they know you're good at Mercy, right?
Yeah.
And when I was giving you that sort of feedback, if it came across as negative, I apologize, because I'm very competitive, and I like to constantly be breaking down my gameplay like seconds after it happens and think, I should have done this, I should have done that. And I knew at the time you were trying to learn new heroes, and so that's what I was trying to do for you. And obviously I realize now that probably might not have been welcome, but I do promise that at least consciously, no part of that was because you were a Mercy player or because you're a girl.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I feel like that also just might have. It probably just didn't occur to you, and
I mean, I do that to my other friends too. I do it to Tony all the time.
Yeah, and I think that's just how you play the game. You're a very min-maxy kind of person. I definitely am too. I see myself like kind of a very min-maxy person with certain things.
I mean,
I think that's just a personality trait that we have, but sometimes it can get a little out of control.
Our cousin Garrett, he's trying to learn Ana right now because he wants to improve at the game, and he knows that Ana is just a better character than the other characters he's currently able to play. So it's a very similar situation to you. And what I've been doing is when he plays Ana, whenever I'm looking at his play, I'll tell him, you should have done this, or you should have done that, or you really should be on the high ground right now. It's like, stop going on the low ground. And one of the things I even suggested was that I told him, if you want, I'm available whenever you want to do some drills on Ana with you in a custom. And what we've been doing the last while, just 1 second, what we've been doing the last while is, I go Genji and he goes Ana, and we practice his different sleeping techniques, his sleep dart techniques.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think another thing I wanted to talk about was, like, one of the last things I wanted to talk about was, how do you think some of these things could be, like, these general, sexist behaviors that a lot of people have, and sometimes they don't even know they're doing it, but, like, what are some ways that could be addressed and fixed? And I think one of the things, even with, trying to help people who are trying to learn new characters, is I think a lot of what you do is, like, being like, oh, you should have done this instead of this.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a lot of what would help be more positive in learning new things, especially for me, is positive reinforcement.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're just being told what you're doing wrong, it gets really you get really self-conscious about everything you do.
I do have a habit of that. I do not give a lot of positive reinforcement when I'm just casually giving feedback like that. I don't do it to myself either. I'm very hard on myself.
No, I know. And I think that just kind of, it helps you. But for a lot of people, like me specifically, positive reinforcement is a really good way of learning new characters, but also feeling good about yourself while doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, when I was trying to learn new heroes, I never got, like, any positive reinforcement. And every time I felt like I did something good, I'd be like, oh, guys, look what I did. And then everyone else would be like, yeah, but you didn't do this, this, and this. And I'm like, oh, well, okay.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, I don't know, I just feel like that's a good way of doing that. But then again, that's not necessarily part of the sexist part of it. But
Mm-hmm.
do you have any ideas of ways that could, like, it doesn't have to be necessarily, like, very feasible, but just any ways you could think of that would kind of help the situation and kind of bridge the gap between communication between female and male players in Overwatch?
It can't be done online on a large scale. It has to be the result of a larger cultural shift, which I do think is happening.
Yeah.
Albeit slower than a lot of people would like, and with more resistance than a lot of people, I think, would like. And I think part of that is because there's a lack of understanding of what the actual problem is from the people who, unfortunately, tend to make it worse. You know, there's this idea, like, you know, the people I'm talking about before, the people who are making those jokes, to them, they're just jokes, right?
Yeah.
It's just, oh, get over it. It's just a little joke, right? If one person made fun of your hair and it was like your closest friend, yeah, that's just a joke. It only gets bad after it happens like 7 or 8 times in a row, right?
Yeah.
Then there's a problem, but to each person who makes that joke, it's just a joke. They all think they're that best friend who's just going to do it once and then it's done.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think there are 2 things that could be done. If girls are, if the gaming industry itself were to become more open to girls, advertising to girls, encouraging girls to buy their games and partake in, the social interaction inside their games online, and do that. If they can create a community, even just one game at a time, where there is a more even distribution of males to females, that will help curb the issue because females won't be a minority in that group.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I think can happen is a larger cultural shift, which
definitely.
On that front, I don't think it's ever fully going to reach the point that people want it to reach. I think it's just sort of an unfortunate habit of human society to pick on people who aren't the strongest. Maybe it's a remnant of our social hierarchies from long ago when we were, a different species, where, we've got a pecking order and you're expected to keep it. And if you're not on top, you get punished. Right.
Yeah. Definitely.
So I think that's sort of always going to be there, unfortunately. But we can sort of, like with any other social ideal, strive to get closer and closer over time. And maybe it won't ever be perfect, but we can always get a little closer. So
yeah, definitely. All right. Well, this has been beyond helpful. I can't.
I'm glad I could help.
Honestly, yeah.
If you want me to reference you to some of my female friends who play Overwatch, I would be happy to do that.
Yeah. I might just talk to them about it anyway, but, like, my rough draft is due tomorrow.
Yeah.
Final draft's due on Wednesday, so if, like, I had time, I absolutely would. I'd absolutely love to get their opinions on it. And maybe in the future I might just do it and, expand on my essay just for me, but for now I think this'll...
I mean, do you mind if I post this on my YouTube channel as public, as sort of a podcast discussion of the topic?
Absolutely, go ahead. I'd love that.
Awesome. Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, that's fine.
Glad I could help.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This is going to make things so much easier for me.
Okay. I will see you around.
All right. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye-bye.